She didn't make a sound, not a whimper, not a bark. She just watched me with those amber eyes from beneath the rotting deck of the abandoned cabin. Her golden fur was matted with mud, and who knows what else, hanging in clumps from her emaciated frame. But it was her eyes that haunted me. They weren't asking for help. They were asking if I was just another human who would cause her pain. I hadn't expected to find anyone here. The old Parker property on Mulberry Road had been abandoned for years, tucked away in the forgotten corners of rural Vermont, where the forest slowly reclaimed what humans left behind. I was only here because my real estate company was considering it for renovation, turn the decrepit cabin into a quaint vacation rental for city folks wanting to escape to the countryside. The property had been vacant since old Mr. Parker passed away 3 winters ago, or at least that's what we all thought. The porch boards creaked under my boots as I approached the cabin door, clipboard in hand. That's when I felt it, that sensation of being watched. I turned slowly, scanning the overgrown yard, the rusted swing set, the ancient maple whose branches scraped against the cabin's roof. Nothing, but the feeling persisted. I crouched down to peer under the porch, and that's when I saw her, a golden retriever, once beautiful and proud. Now reduced to skin stretched over bones, she was pressed against the dirt, partially hidden behind a fallen support beam. "Hey there," I said softly, keeping my voice gentle. "Are you okay, girl?" She didn't move, didn't react, just those eyes, watching, wary, waiting. I pulled out my phone, turning on the flashlight to see better in the shadows. That's when I noticed she wasn't alone. Behind her, barely visible in the darkness, lay 3 tiny bundles of fur, golden retriever puppies, maybe 3 weeks old. 2 of them squirmed slightly, but the third, tucked closest to the mother's body, barely seemed to move at all. I backed away slowly, careful not to spook her. Back in my truck, I found the remainder of my lunch, a turkey sandwich on whole wheat. Not ideal, but it would have to do. I returned to the edge of the porch, broke the sandwich into small pieces, and tossed them gently toward her. She didn't lunge for the food as I expected a starving dog might. Instead, she carefully picked up each piece and carried it back to her puppies. One by one, she placed the food in front of them, nudging the weakest one first. Only after they had eaten did she take a small piece for herself. Something tightened in my chest. I've always considered myself practical, unsentimental. In real estate, you learn to see potential value, not emotional attachment. But watching this mother, sacrificing for her babies in the dirt beneath a condemned building, I couldn't just walk away from this. "I'll be back," I promised her quietly. "Tomorrow morning, first thing." She gave no indication she understood, but her eyes never left mine until I stood and walked back to my truck. The entire drive back to town, all I could think about was those eyes and that motionless little puppy. The smallest one had a distinctive marking, a perfect white patch shaped like a crescent moon on its forehead. It barely moved, even when offered food. That night, I couldn't sleep. The temperature was dropping into the low 40s, unusually cold for early October. My mind kept returning to those dogs huddled in the dirt, the tiny puppies struggling to survive. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the mother's gaze, not begging, not pleading, just enduring. Before dawn, I was already loading my truck. Blankets, dog food I'd picked up from the 24-hour supermarket, a container of warm beef broth, a couple of old towels. I grabbed my first aid kit as an afterthought, though I had no idea what I might need it for. I wasn't a vet, not even much of a dog person, but something about this situation had lodged itself in my heart. As I drove through the misty Vermont countryside, the sun barely cresting the rolling hills, I knew this wasn't just about filing a property report anymore. This morning wouldn't end with measurements and market assessments. Something more important was waiting under that porch. Something that wouldn't wait for business hours or committee approvals. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled up to the old cabin. Everything was quiet except for the morning birds and the whisper of wind through the trees. I wondered if she'd still be there, if they'd all made it through the night. As I grabbed my supplies and approached the porch, my heart was pounding in a way it hadn't in years. What I found beneath that porch would change everything, not just for her, but for me too. Some rescue stories start with a bang, with drama and noise, but ours began in silence, with just a look exchanged between two souls on opposite sides of trust. The morning air was crisp with the promise of frost as I approached the porch again. This time I moved slower, deliberate in my actions. I placed the container of warm broth several feet from the porch edge, close enough for the scent to reach her but far enough to not appear threatening. Then I sat down on the cold ground, cross-legged, and waited. Minutes passed in silence. 5, then 10. The only sounds were the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of a blue jay. I began to wonder if she'd somehow managed to move her puppies overnight, finding a safer haven away from human interference. Then I saw movement, a slight shifting in the shadows. Two amber eyes reflecting the morning light. She was still there, watching me with that same measured caution. "Morning," I said softly. "I brought you something better than sandwich scraps today." I didn't reach toward her or make any sudden movements. I just sat there, letting her decide if I was trustworthy. Gradually, she crept forward, her body low to the ground. Each step seemed to cost her energy. She couldn't spare, her ribs pressed against her dull coat like piano keys beneath a dusty cloth. She stopped at the edge of the shadow cast by the porch, sniffing the air. The scent of the warm broth seemed to give her courage. With one more cautious glance at me, she emerged fully into the light. Up close, her condition was even worse than I'd first thought. Not just thin, but wounded. A gash on her shoulder had scabbed over without proper healing, and one paw showed signs of an old injury. But she moved with a dignity that belied her circumstances, approaching the broth with slow determination. Again, she surprised me. Instead of drinking, she turned back toward the porch and made a soft huffing sound. A signal. From beneath the darkness came the puppies, two of them wobbling out on unsteady legs. The third, the one with the crescent moon marking, didn't appear. The mother nosed the broth container, then looked back at her puppies. They approached hesitantly, lapping at the warm liquid, while she stood guard, her eyes alternating between her babies and me. Only when they had drunk their fill did she lower her head to take a few careful laps. "Where's your other little one?" I asked, knowing she couldn't answer, but feeling the need to speak anyway. "The one with the moon mark." As if understanding, she looked back toward the darkness under the porch. Then at me. There was something new in her gaze now. Not just weariness, but a flicker of something I might have called hope if I hadn't known better. I nodded, speaking in that same soft tone. "I need to see him, girl. Is that okay?" Slowly, I shifted position, moving onto my hands and knees. She tensed, but didn't retreat. Progress of a sort. I inched closer to the porch, stopping whenever she seemed uncomfortable. It was a dance of sorts. Advance, pause, wait for permission, advance again. Finally, I was close enough to see under the porch clearly. The two healthier puppies had returned to their spot, but now I could see the third. The smallest one with the crescent moon marking lay curled against the dirt, barely moving. Its breathing was shallow, its tiny body trembling even in the still air. "He needs help," I said, more to myself than to the mother. Real help, not just food. I reached into my bag and pulled out one of the blankets I'd brought, a soft fleece one that had seen better days. With slow movements, I extended it toward the edge of the porch. The mother watched, alert but not aggressive. I laid the blanket flat and slid it partially under the porch. "For your babies," I told her. "It's getting too cold out here." To my amazement, she understood, or at least she recognized the offering for what it was. She gripped the edge of the blanket in her teeth and dragged it fully under the porch. With careful movements, she arranged it around her puppies, making a nest of sorts. The two stronger ones immediately cuddled into its warmth. She nosed the weakest one onto the blanket as well, licking its tiny face with gentle strokes. I sat back, giving her space. That's good, but it's not enough, is it? Not for the little guy. She looked at me again, and this time there was no mistaking the emotion in those amber eyes. It wasn't just weariness anymore. It was desperation cloaked in dignity, the look of a mother who had done everything possible for her children, and now faced the terrible knowledge that it wasn't enough. I made a decision then, one that would change the course of my day, my week, perhaps much more. I'll be right back, I promised her. In my truck. I found an old cardboard box that had held reams of paper. I lined it with another blanket, creating a makeshift carrier. When I returned to the porch, the mother was waiting, as if she had been expecting me. I need to take him to someone who can help, I explained, knowing she couldn't understand my words, but hoping my tone conveyed my intentions. A vet, a doctor for dogs. But I'll bring him back to you. I promise. I knelt down and reached toward the opening under the porch, moving with deliberate slowness. The mother tensed, a low rumble building in her throat. Not quite a growl, but a warning. I froze, waiting. What happened next still amazes me when I think about it. After a long moment of assessment, she turned and disappeared under the porch. I heard shuffling, then watched as she emerged again, this time with the smallest puppy dangling gently from her mouth. The tiny creature hung limp, eyes closed, that distinctive crescent moon marking stark against its golden fur. She placed the puppy on the ground between us, then looked up at me with an intensity that took my breath away. It wasn't surrender, it was entrusting. This wasn't her giving up on her baby. This was her making the hardest choice a mother can make, placing her child's survival above her fear. With reverent care, I picked up the tiny puppy. It weighed almost nothing, a fragile vessel of heartbeats and shallow breaths. I placed it in the box, wrapping the blanket gently around its small form. I'll take good care of him, I promised the mother, and I'll be back. As I walked to my truck, carrying my precious cargo, I glanced back. She stood at the edge of the porch, watching, not following, not crying out, just watching with those solemn amber eyes that had seen too much suffering. I placed the box on the passenger seat, securing it as best I could. The puppy hadn't moved or made a sound. Time was running out. As I started the engine, I made a silent vow that this wouldn't be the end. Not for this tiny fighter with the moon on his brow, and not for his brave mother who had trusted a stranger when trust was all she had left to give. The drive into town felt interminable. Every bump in the road had me glancing anxiously at the box, where the tiny puppy lay motionless except for the shallow rise and fall of its chest. I'd cranked the heat in the truck, worried about the little one getting cold, but not knowing what else to do. Millfield was a small town, a kind where everyone knew everyone else's business by noon. We had exactly one veterinary clinic, Millfield Animal Hospital, a modest building on the edge of Main Street. I'd never been inside, never had a reason to. I didn't even know if they'd be open this early. But I had no other options. To my relief, lights were on inside the clinic, though the closed sign still hung on the door. I parked haphazardly, grabbed the box, and approached anyway. Through the glass door, I could see a young woman in scrubs arranging supplies on a counter. I knocked, probably more forcefully than necessary. She looked up, startled, then came to the door. "We don't open for another hour," she began, opening the door just a crack. "Please," I interrupted, lifting the box slightly. "I found this puppy. He's barely breathing. I don't think he has an hour." Her expression changed immediately. She pulled the door wide. "Bring him in." I followed her through a waiting room decorated with pet photos and educational posters, directly into an examination room. The antiseptic smell hit me immediately, clinical and sharp. "Put the box here," she instructed, patting an examination table. As I placed it down, she peered inside. "How long has he been like this?" "I don't know. I found him this morning." "Well, yesterday actually, but I just got him away from his mother today. She's still out there with 2 other puppies, under an abandoned porch on the old Parker property." She gently lifted the tiny puppy from the box. He looked even smaller in the bright lights of the exam room, his golden fur dull and his little body limp. The crescent moon marking seemed to glow white against his forehead. "I'm May," she said, her fingers expertly checking the puppy's gums. "I'm the vet tech here. Dr. Lambert should be in any minute." She frowned at what she saw. "This little guy is severely dehydrated and cold. His temperature's too low." She moved with efficient grace, wrapping the puppy in a warming blanket and preparing what looked like a tiny IV. "What's your name?" she asked, not looking up from her work. Jack Holloway." "Well, Jack, you did the right thing bringing him in." She finally glanced up at me. Most people would have just called animal control, or worse, ignored them entirely. Before I could respond, the door opened and an older woman entered, grey hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, white coat already on, despite the early hour. "Dr. Lambert." I presumed. "What do we have here, May?" she asked, approaching the table. "Abandoned golden retriever puppies, severe dehydration, hypothermia, possible malnutrition, found under a porch with mother and siblings." Mare rattled off the information with professional precision. Dr. Lambert nodded, taking over the examination. Her hands moved with experienced confidence over the tiny body. "How old would you estimate?" she asked Mare. 3 weeks, maybe 4. Hard to tell with the malnutrition." The doctor nodded again. "Let's get fluids going immediately. And a glucose solution. Blood draw for testing. We'll need to warm him gradually." They worked around me as if I wasn't there, a whirl of medical terminology and practiced movements. I stood awkwardly, still holding the empty box, not knowing if I should stay or go. "His mother's still out there," I said finally, "with 2 other puppies. I promised I'd bring him back." Dr. Lambert glanced at me, her expression softening slightly. "You did the right thing, but this little one won't be going anywhere for a while, if he makes it at all. His condition is critical." I swallowed hard. "What can I do?" "For now, fill out some paperwork. May will help you. We'll need to know exactly where you found them." She returned her attention to the puppy, gently inserting a tiny needle into a vein. May led me back to the reception area, where she handed me a clipboard with forms. As I filled them out, describing the location and condition of the dogs, she asked questions about the mother and other puppies. "They seemed better off than this one," I explained. "Still too thin, but moving around, eating when offered food. The mother is in rough shape, injured, starving, but she's been keeping them alive somehow." Matey nodded, making notes. "We should get animal control out there." "No," I said too quickly. Something about the mother's eyes, that look of wary assessment, made me certain that animal control trucks and strangers in uniforms would send her running, possibly abandoning the remaining puppies. "Let me go back first. She's starting to trust me. I can bring them in." May looked skeptical. "It's not safe for them out there, or for you, potentially. A mother dog protecting her puppies can be dangerous." She had plenty of chances to be aggressive and wasn't. She handed me this puppy herself, literally carried him to me. I leaned forward, surprising myself with my intensity. "Please, give me today. Let me try." She studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I'll talk to Dr. Lambert, but you should know. This little guy's treatment won't be free. Are you prepared to cover his care?" I hadn't thought about that. My career in real estate paid well enough, but veterinary bills weren't in my budget. Still, looking through the doorway at the tiny puppy now wrapped in blankets, with tubes attached to his little body, I couldn't imagine walking away. "Yes," I said, "whatever it costs." Man's expression softened. "Let me check on him, then we'll discuss next steps." I sat alone in the waiting room, the reality of what I'd committed to slowly sinking in. My phone buzzed. A message from my boss asking for the Parker property assessment. I'd completely forgotten about work. What was I doing? Getting emotionally involved with stray dogs wasn't like me at all. Yet the image of the mother's eyes stayed with me, along with the weight of that tiny puppy in my hands. Some things transcended logical decision-making. Some things just had to be done, because they were right. May returned after about 20 minutes. He's stabilizing, she reported. Dr. Lambert is cautiously optimistic, but the next 24 hours will be critical. Relief washed through me. Can I see him? She nodded and led me back to where the puppy now lay in a small incubator-like unit, wrapped in blankets, with a heating pad beneath him. Various machines monitored his vital signs. He looked marginally better. His breathing seemed less labored, though his eyes remained closed. We're running some tests, May explained, but it looks like severe malnutrition combined with exposure. He may also have an infection of some kind. I nodded, staring at the tiny creature fighting for his life. The crescent moon marking seemed to stand out even more prominently against his golden fur. You said his mother and siblings are still out there? Dr. Lambert asked, entering the room with a tablet in hand. Yes, under the porch of the abandoned Parker property on Mulberry Road. She nodded, making a note. Maye tells me you want to try bringing them in yourself, rather than calling animal control. I do. The mother is extremely wary, but seems to be starting to trust me. I'm afraid strangers would scare her off. Dr. Lambert considered this, then nodded. I understand your concern, but those remaining puppies need medical attention too. And the mother sounds like she requires immediate care. She paused. I can give you until the end of today. If you haven't brought them in by closing time, I'll have to report this to animal control. It's getting too cold at night for puppies in their condition. Thank you, I said, relief evident in my voice. I'll head back right now. Take supplies, she instructed. Me will put together a rescue kit for you. Blankets, some soft food for the mother, a carrier for the puppies, and Jack, be careful. Even the gentlest dogs can become unpredictable when stressed. I nodded, understanding the warning. As May assembled the supplies, I took one more look at the tiny puppy in the incubator. You'll fight hard, little one, I whispered. Your mum's counting on you. As I loaded the supplies into my truck, I felt a strange mix of determination and uncertainty. I was a real estate agent, not an animal rescuer. Yet somehow, in the span of less than 24 hours, I'd become responsible for the welfare of this small, broken family. The morning had fully bloomed now, sunlight dappling through the changing leaves as I drove back toward the Parker property. I knew what needed to be done, but the how of it remained elusive. How would I convince a frightened, injured mother dog to trust me enough to leave her sanctuary? How would I get her and the remaining puppies safely to the clinic? And if I succeeded, what then? Questions without answers tumbled through my mind as I drove. But one certainty remained. I had made a promise to the mother with those trusting amber eyes, to the tiny fighter with the moon on his brow, and now, somehow, to myself. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled up to the Parker property once more. Everything looked different in the full light of day. Less ominous, perhaps, but the neglect was more apparent. Peeling paint, a partially collapsed section of roof, weeds growing through the cracked walkway, nature slowly reclaiming what humans had abandoned. I gathered the supplies May had packed, a soft-sided pet carrier, blankets, a container of wet food specially formulated for nursing mothers, a water bowl, and some basic first aid supplies. As I approached the porch, I moved slowly, deliberately, making enough noise that my presence wouldn't startle the waiting mother. Hello again, I called softly. I'm back, just like I promised. There was no immediate response. The space under the porch looked empty, the blanket I'd left earlier lying rumpled but unoccupied. My heart sank. Had she moved them? Worse, had something happened while I was gone? I knelt down, peering into the darkness. Hey girl, are you in there? After a moment, I saw movement at the far back of the crawl space. Two amber eyes reflecting the light. She'd retreated to the furthest corner, the remaining puppies presumably with her. It's okay, I said, keeping my voice gentle. Your baby is getting help. He's in good hands. I opened the container of wet food and placed it near the edge of the porch, then backed away several feet, sitting cross-legged on the ground as I had earlier. Patience would be key here. I couldn't rush this. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, she emerged from the shadows. She looked even worse in the full daylight, her golden fur hanging in dirty clumps, the injury on her shoulder clearly inflamed, her movements stiff and cautious. But she approached the food with slightly more confidence than before, her nose working overtime analyzing the offering. She didn't immediately eat. Instead, she turned back toward the porch and made that same soft huffing sound I'd heard earlier. The two remaining puppies wobbled out, healthier than their sibling, but still far too thin, their golden fur dull and their movements uncertain. While the puppies ate, she kept watch, her eyes moving between them and me in a now familiar pattern. Only when they had eaten their fill did she lower her head to the bowl, consuming what remained with controlled urgency. "Your little one, the one with the moon mark," they said conversationally. "He's holding on. The doctors are helping him." I had no idea if she understood anything I was saying, but speaking seemed to help the situation feel more normal, less tense. "But you all need to come with me. It's not safe here." She watched me as I slowly opened the pet carrier, showing her the blanket inside. "See? Comfortable, safe, for you and your babies." Her posture remained alert but not aggressive. After finishing the food, she approached the water bowl next, drinking deeply before again allowing her puppies access. They seemed more energetic after eating, one of them even venturing a few steps in my direction before she gently herded it back with her nose. Progress, I thought. Slow, but definite progress. As the puppies played near their mother's feet, I noticed distinguishing features I'd missed before. One had a patch of darker gold, almost brown, on its back. The other had white socks on 3 paws. These weren't just anonymous puppies. They were individuals, each with their own markings, their own personalities beginning to emerge. The mother watched me watching her children, and something shifted in her gaze. The wariness remained, but alongside it was assessment, calculation. She was smart. This dog, she was weighing options, considering risks and benefits with a clarity that surprised me. I slowly extended my hand, palm up, not reaching toward her but offering connection. "I promise I'm trying to help. All of you." She stared at my hand for a long moment. Then, with deliberate slowness, she took 2 steps forward and delicately sniffed my fingers. Not quite trust, but acknowledgement. Communication. "That's good," I encouraged. "That's really good, girl." Using the same careful movements, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a treat May had given me, a soft, chewy morsel designed to be gentle on teeth that might be damaged or sensitive. I placed it on my palm and offered it to her. She sniffed it thoroughly before taking it with surprising gentleness from my hand. Our eyes met as she chewed, and I saw something new there, a tentative connection forming between us. "Your puppy at the clinic," I continued. "The little one with the moon mark. He needs you. And you need help too." I gestured to her injured shoulder. "That looks painful. The doctors can make it better." Again, I had no illusion that she understood my words, but she seemed to respond to my tone, my energy. I pointed to the carrier. "This is how we get there. You and your little ones." For the next hour, I sat with them, slowly decreasing the distance between us. I allowed the puppies to investigate me at their own pace. The one with the brown patch on its back was bolder, wobbling up to sniff my boots before retreating. The one with the white socks was more cautious, watching from behind its mother's front legs. Gradually, I moved the carrier closer, leaving its door open, occasionally tossing treats inside to create positive associations. The mother watched everything with that same intelligent assessment, neither fleeing nor fully engaging. The sun had risen higher, warming the day despite the autumn chill. I checked my watch. 4 hours had passed since I'd left the clinic. I needed to make progress soon. Dr. Lambert had given me until closing time, but the sooner these dogs received care, the better. "What do you think?" I asked the mother. "Ready to try something new?" As if responding to my question, she stood and approached the carrier, sniffing it thoroughly. She poked her head inside, inspecting the blanket, the enclosed space. Then she backed out and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret. I reached out slowly and stroked the top of her head, the first full contact between us. She stiffened, but didn't pull away. Her fur felt rough and tangled under my fingers, but the warmth of her confirmed what I already knew. She was alive, resilient, fighting, taking a chance. I picked up one of the puppies, the one with the brown patch. It squirmed slightly in my hands, but didn't cry out. The mother tensed, watching intently, but made no move to stop me. I gently placed the puppy in the carrier, speaking softly the entire time. "That's one," I told her, "just like that. Easy and safe." The puppy sniffed around its new confines, then settled on the blanket, apparently deciding it was acceptable. Without waiting too long, I reached for the second puppy, the one with white socks. This one let out a small whimper as I lifted it, causing the mother to take a half step forward. I froze, letting her see that my intentions were gentle. "It's okay," I murmured, "just going for a little ride. That's all." After a moment, she relaxed slightly, and I placed the second puppy next to its sibling. The two of them immediately cuddled together, apparently finding comfort in each other's presence. Now came the harder part, convincing the mother to enter as well. I sat back, not wanting to crowd her. This had to be her decision. I pointed to the carrier, where her puppies now waited. "They need you. We need to go help your other little one." She looked at the carrier, then back at me. The intelligence in those amber eyes was unmistakable. She was weighing options, calculating risks. Time stretched between us. A minute, maybe two. Then, with deliberate dignity, she stepped forward and entered the carrier. She turned around once, settled down beside her puppies, and looked up at me. There was no fear in her gaze now, only a solemn agreement, a pact. My throat tightened unexpectedly. "Thank you," I whispered, with gentle movements. I closed the carrier door, securing it without making it feel like a trap. The mother watched me through the mesh front, but remained calm. I gathered the remaining supplies and carried the carrier to my truck, securing it on the passenger seat with the seatbelt. "We're going to get help," I told them as I started the engine. "All of you." As we pulled away from the Parker property, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the abandoned porch, the shadows beneath it now empty. What had been a place of desperate survival just hours ago was now just an architectural feature, waiting for demolition or renovation, or whatever fate had in store. In contrast, the carrier beside me hummed with life, with heartbeats and breath and the quiet determination of a mother who had done the unimaginable to keep her children alive. As we drove toward town, toward help, I couldn't help but feel that I was transporting something precious, not just dogs in need of rescue, but courage itself, wrapped in dirty golden fur. The drive back to Millfield Animal Hospital felt different this time. Rather than the frantic urgency of the morning, a quiet determination filled the truck cabin. The carrier beside me occasionally shifted as the mother adjusted her position, but she made no sounds of distress. She seemed to understand on some level that we were moving towards something better. As I pulled into the clinic parking lot, I noticed more cars than before. The open sign now hung on the door, and through the windows, I could see people with various pets in the waiting room. Ordinary people with ordinary concerns, vaccinations, checkups, minor ailments. They had no idea of the drama unfolding just outside. I carefully lifted the carrier from the passenger seat. "We are here," I told its occupants. "The little one with the moon mark is waiting for you." As I approached the clinic doors, a woman exiting with a cat carrier held the door open for me. Her eyes widened slightly at the condition of the dogs visible through the mesh of my carrier, but she said nothing. Inside, the reception area hummed with afternoon activity. A man with a parrot on his shoulder, an elderly couple with a small terrier, a teenager holding a rabbit in her lap. Mies spotted me immediately from behind the front desk, her professional composure briefly giving way to surprise. "You brought them," she said, coming around to meet me. "All of them." I nodded. They came willingly. "How's the little one? The one with the moon mark?" "Holding his own." She took the carrier from me, peering inside. "Follow me to the back. Dr. Lambert will want to see them immediately." As we moved through a door marked staff only, the sounds and smells of the clinic intensified. Antiseptic cleaner, the soft whir of medical equipment, the occasional bark or meow from unseen patients. We passed several examination rooms before entering a larger space that appeared to be a treatment area. Several metal tables gleamed under bright lights, and along one wall, a row of kennels housed recovering animals. Dr. Lambert looked up from where she was examining an elderly beagle. Seeing us, she quickly finished her notes and approached. "You did it," she said, sounding genuinely impressed. "Let's take a look." I placed the carrier on an empty examination table and carefully opened the door. The mother watched warily but didn't retreat to the back of the carrier. The puppies peeked out curiously. "Let them come out in their own time," Dr. Lambert advised. "Less stressful that way." We waited patiently. After a moment, the bolder puppy, with the brown patch on its back, ventured to the edge of the carrier door, sniffing the air. Its sibling, with the white socks, remained huddled against the mother. "That's it," Dr. Lambert encouraged softly. "No rush." Gradually, the first puppy emerged completely onto the table. Its little tail gave a tentative wag as it looked around the new environment. The mother watched carefully, but made no move to retrieve it. "Progress. I'd like to check them one by one," Dr. Lambert explained to me, "starting with the puppies, then the mother. We'll need to clean them up, run some tests, check for parasites and infections. The works." I nodded. "And the cost?" She waved a hand. "We'll figure that out later. First things first." Mia approached with a stethoscope around her neck. "Would you like to see Moon first?" "That's what we've been calling the little one with the crescent marking." My heart jumped. "He's okay?" "Still critical," she cautioned. "But he's a fighter. Come with me." As Dr. Lambert began examining the first puppy, I followed May to a quieter corner of the treatment area. There, in a small incubator-like unit, lay the tiny puppy I'd brought in that morning. He looked marginally better, his breathing seemed less labored, and some color had returned to his gums. The IV was still attached to his tiny leg, and a heating pad remained beneath him, but his position had changed. He was curled on his side now, rather than lying flat. "He's responding to treatment," May explained. "His body temperature has stabilized, and he's taking fluids well. We're still concerned about possible infection and his overall condition, but he's shown remarkable resilience." I reached out, letting my finger gently stroke the top of his head, careful not to disturb any of the medical equipment. The crescent moon marking seemed more prominent now against his golden fur. "Hey there, Moon," I whispered. "Your family's here." As if hearing me, his tiny paws twitched slightly. A reflex, perhaps, but it felt like recognition. "Dr. Lambert thinks all 3 puppies are about 3 to 4 weeks old," May continued, "still dependent on their mother, but starting to transition to solid food. It's a miracle they've survived this long in those conditions." I thought about the mother, how she'd given food to her puppies before taking any for herself. "Not a miracle," I corrected gently. "A mother's determination." Mia's expression softened. "You're right, it's quite remarkable." She checked Moon's vital signs on a nearby monitor. "Let's bring his mother to see him. That contact could be beneficial for both of them." We returned to where Dr. Lambert was examining the second puppy, the one with white socks. Both puppies appeared calmer than I expected, allowing the examination with only minimal squirming. The mother remained in the carrier, watching everything with those intelligent amber eyes. "These 2 are in better shape than I anticipated," Dr. Lambert reported. "Malnourished and dehydrated, yes, but no serious health issues apparent on initial examination. We'll run more thorough tests." "Of course." I nodded, relieved. May suggested bringing the mother to see Moon. Dr. Lambert considered this. Good idea, but let's examine her first. She's clearly injured and in poor condition. Getting the mother out of the carrier proved more challenging. After seeing her puppies handled by strangers, her trust had understandably wavered. She retreated to the back of the carrier, her posture tense. "It's okay," I told her, keeping my voice calm and reassuring. "These are the people helping your baby. The one with the moon mark. They can help you too." Dr. Lambert and May gave me space. Recognizing that the mother had formed a tentative bond with me, I reached in slowly, not grabbing or forcing, simply offering my hand as I had under the porch. After a moment's hesitation, she sniffed my fingers, then pressed her head lightly against my palm. "That's it," I encouraged. "You're being so brave." Gradually, with gentle coaxing, she emerged from the carrier. Her movements were stiff, pained. Now, under the bright clinic lights, her condition was even more apparent. The wound on her shoulder inflamed and partially infected, her ribs clearly visible beneath her matted coat, old scars telling stories of past injuries or abuse. "She's been through a lot," Dr. Lambert observed quietly, careful not to move too suddenly or speak too loudly. "But she's trusting you. That's significant." The mother allowed Dr. Lambert to approach, though she pressed against my legs when the vet extended her hands. The examination was brief but thorough. Heart rate, temperature, a gentle assessment of the shoulder wound, careful palpation of her abdomen and limbs. "She needs antibiotics for that shoulder," Dr. Lambert concluded. "Proper nutrition, fluids, treatment for parasites. But considering what she's been through, she's in remarkably good condition. She's young, probably not more than 2 or 3 years old." I nodded, absorbing this information. "Can she see Moon now?" "Yes, I think that would be good. May, can you bring the other puppies too? Let's keep the family together." May gathered the 2 healthier puppies, who had been exploring the examination table with growing confidence. She placed them in a small, clean kennel with fresh blankets. Dr. Lambert administered a quick injection of antibiotics to the mother, who accepted it with only minimal resistance. "This way," May directed, leading us to Moon's incubator. The mother followed, still staying close to my legs but moving with purpose now. When she saw the incubator containing her smallest puppy, she quickened her pace, her nose working overtime to catch his scent through the plastic barrier. Dr. Lambert carefully opened one side of the unit, allowing the mother access, while ensuring none of the medical equipment was disturbed. What happened next brought tears to my eyes. The mother approached her tiny puppy with exquisite gentleness. She sniffed him thoroughly, her nose traveling from his head to his tail, cataloguing changes, confirming his identity. Then she began to lick his face, soft, tender strokes that spoke of recognition and relief. Moon responded, his little body shifting slightly toward his mother's touch, though his eyes remained closed. "He knows she's here," May whispered. "Look at his vital signs." I glanced at the monitor and saw that his heart rate had steadied, become stronger and more regular. The simple presence of his mother was medicine no veterinary science could replicate. "Let's bring the siblings too," Dr. Lambert suggested. May opened the small kennel and carefully lifted the 2 other puppies, placing them near their brother, but not so close as to disturb the medical equipment. The mother watched attentively, dividing her attention between all 3 of her children. The healthier puppies sniffed their brother curiously, perhaps recognizing his scent, but confused by the strange surroundings and equipment. For several minutes we stood in silence, witnessing this family reunion. The mother continued her gentle ministrations, cleaning Moon's face, nuzzling his tiny body. The other puppies settled nearby, apparently comforted by their mother's presence and the warmth of the incubator. "This is exactly what he needs," Dr. Lambert said finally. "The medical treatment is important, but this connection, this is healing of a different kind." I nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in my throat. Something profound was happening here, something that transcended the clinical setting, the medical terminology, the sterile environment. This was about family, about the bonds that hold us together even through the darkest times. They need names, May said suddenly. We can't just keep calling them the puppies. And the mother, Dr. Lambert smiled. Jack, any suggestions? You found them after all. I considered this, watching the little family. The mother's amber eyes met mine, steady and knowing. Luna, I said, for the mother, because she guided her children through the darkness, like the moon guides travelers at night. Dr. Lambert nodded, approvingly. Luna, it is. And the little one with the moon mark is already Moon. What about the others? I pointed to the puppy with the brown patch on its back, now exploring the edges of the incubator with newfound energy. Rusty, for that patch of darker fur, then to the one with white socks, still staying close to Luna's side, and Boots, for obvious reasons. Luna, Moon, Rusty, and Boots, May repeated. A perfect family. A family that had been surviving in the shadows beneath a broken porch just hours ago. A family that had trusted a stranger enough to leave their sanctuary of dirt and darkness for an unknown destination. A family that was now, against all odds, together under the care of people who could help them heal. As Luna settled beside the incubator, her body curled protectively around her puppies, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was a commitment. Whatever happened next, I was part of their story now, and they were part of mine. Dr. Lambert seemed to read my thoughts. They'll need to stay here for a while, she said, at least until Moon is stable and Luna's infection is under control. After that, she left the sentence unfinished, a question hanging in the air. After that, I said firmly, we'll figure it out. Together. Luna's eyes met mine again, and in them I saw not just wariness or assessment or even trust. I saw recognition of what? I couldn't quite say, perhaps of a kindred spirit, perhaps of someone who had also known loneliness, who understood what it meant to fight for survival in a world that often overlooked the vulnerable. Whatever the reason, as I sat beside the incubator where her family now rested, Luna shifted slightly, pressing her warm body against my leg. A simple gesture, but one that said more than words ever could. We had both taken a chance today, she with her precious children, I with my carefully constructed emotional boundaries. And somehow, in the space between us, something new had begun to grow. The afternoon stretched into evening as Luna and her puppies settled into the clinic. Dr. Lambert had converted a quiet back room into a temporary home for them, a large kennel with soft blankets, water, and specially formulated food for Luna. Moon remained in his incubator, but it had been moved adjacent to the kennel so Luna could see and smell him, maintaining that crucial connection. I sat cross-legged on the floor beside them, watching as Rusty and Boots explored their new surroundings with growing confidence. They tumbled over each other, their little tails wagging with what looked surprisingly like joy. After the hardship of their early weeks, the simple comforts of warmth, food, and safety seemed to have revitalized them almost immediately. Luna lay with her head on her paws, amber eyes tracking her puppy's movements. The antibiotics were beginning to work on her shoulder wound, and a gentle bath had removed the worst of the dirt from her coat, revealing a golden color that hinted at future beauty once proper nutrition and care took effect. Still, exhaustion lined every movement. She was running on empty, her body depleted from weeks of putting her puppy's needs before her own. May brought in a small cup of a nutritional paste. This is calorie-dense, she explained, handing it to me. See if Luna will take it from you. She needs to build her strength back up, to care for the puppies, and produce milk. I scooped a small amount on my finger and offered it to Luna. She sniffed it cautiously, then licked it from my finger. Her tail gave a single, tentative wag. She likes it, I said, offering her more. Good, May nodded approvingly. We'll supplement her regular food with this for a while. The puppies are old enough to start transitioning to solid food, which is fortunate given Luna's condition. I continued feeding Luna the paste, one fingerful at a time, as I did. I found myself talking to her softly. You did an amazing job, you know that, keeping them alive. Finding shelter. You're an incredible mother. Her eyes never left mine as she ate. Something in her gaze had shifted since this morning, the wary assessment replacing with a tentative acceptance. Not quite trust, not yet, but recognition that here, at least, she didn't need to be constantly on guard. Dr. Lambert entered, carrying a clipboard. "Good news," she announced. "Moon's latest blood work shows improvement. His infection is responding to the antibiotics, and his blood sugar has stabilized. He's not out of the woods yet, but he's heading in the right direction." Relief washed through me. "That's incredible. Small victories," she agreed, then glanced at her watch. "It's nearly 7. We normally close at 6. But given the circumstances," she hesitated. "Would you like to stay a bit longer?" The question struck me as odd until I realized she was giving me an opportunity to leave. Of course, I'd done what I promised. I'd brought Luna and her puppies to safety. My obligation was technically fulfilled. I could return to my normal life, my job, my apartment, my solitary evenings. The thought felt hollow. Actually, I heard myself saying, I was wondering if I could stay overnight, just this first night. I gestured to Moon in his incubator. In case anything changes, in case he needs someone. The unspoken truth hung between us. I wasn't a veterinarian. If Moon's condition deteriorated, there was nothing medical I could do. Dr. Lambert knew this as well as I did. But she also seemed to understand what I wasn't quite saying. That something had happened today, something neither of us had anticipated. A connection had formed that couldn't be easily severed. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "We don't normally allow it, but these aren't normal circumstances. I can have Mays set up a cot in here. The night attendant checks on all patients hourly, so someone will always be close by." "Thank you," I said, the relief in my voice evident even to my own ears. Dr. Lambert smiled. "You've done a remarkable thing today, Jack. Not many people would have noticed them in the first place, let alone gone to such lengths." I shook my head. "It doesn't feel remarkable. It just feels necessary." She nodded, understanding. "Those are often the same thing." She checked Moon's vitals once more, made a note on her clipboard, and moved toward the door. "I'll have May bring you that cot and something for dinner. It's going to be a long night." After she left, I returned my attention to Luna and her puppies. Rusty had discovered a soft toy May had placed in the kennel, a small stuffed duck, and was proudly carrying it around. Boots had found a comfortable spot in the corner of the blanket, and was already dozing, tiny paws twitching in puppy dreams. Luna watched it all, her vigilance never wavering despite her obvious exhaustion. I recognized the signs. She wouldn't truly rest while any perceived threat remained. And in her experience, the world was full of threats. "It's okay," I told her softly. "You can sleep. You're safe here." Her amber eyes met mine, filled with a wisdom born of survival. She didn't believe me. Not completely. How could she? Her entire experience had taught her otherwise. Trust would take time, more than words, more than one day of kindness. May returned with a folding cot, a pillow, a blanket, and a paper bag containing a sandwich and chips from the deli down the street. "Dinner," she announced, "and your accommodations, such as they are. Not exactly 5-star. I smiled gratefully. "It's perfect, thank you." She set up the cot against the wall opposite the kennel, allowing Luna clear sight of me. "Night shift comes on at 10. Tara's really good. She'll check on Moon regularly, but don't hesitate to call if you notice anything concerning." She handed me a call button similar to those in hospitals. "This alerts the front desk." Once everything was arranged, May said goodnight, dimming the lights to a soft glow that allowed visibility without being harsh. The room settled into a gentle quietness, punctuated only by the soft breathing of the puppies and the occasional beep from Moon's monitoring equipment. I ate my sandwich sitting on the floor near the kennel, sharing small pieces of turkey with Luna, who accepted them with increasing ease. As the evening deepened into night, Rusty and Boots finally exhausted themselves with play and curled up against their mother's side, falling into the deep sleep of the young and newly secure. Luna, however, remained awake, her head raised, her eyes moving between her sleeping puppies, Moon in his incubator, and me on my cot. I recognized the signs of a mind too alert to rest, a body too accustomed to vigilance to surrender to exhaustion. I moved my cot closer to the kennel, close enough that she could see me clearly even in the dim light. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I began to read aloud. My phone had an e-reader app with several books downloaded, and I chose one at random, a mystery novel I'd started months ago and never finished. My voice, soft and steady in the quiet room, seemed to have a calming effect. Luna's posture gradually relaxed, her head lowering to rest on her paws, though her eyes remained open, watching me. I read chapter after chapter, the story unfolding in the space between us. A detective solving crimes in a small coastal town, worlds away from our current reality. The night attendant, Tara, checked in regularly as promised, her movements efficient but gentle. She seemed unsurprised to find me reading to a dog and her puppies in the middle of the night, which made me wonder what other scenes of human-animal connection she had witnessed in this clinic after hours. Around midnight, something changed. Luna's eyes, which had been fixed on me as I read, began to droop. Her breathing deepened. The vigilance that had kept her awake began to fade. Still, I continued reading, my voice growing softer but never stopping, creating a constant, reassuring presence in the room. And then, between one paragraph and the next, it happened. Luna slept, truly slept, her body finally surrendering to the exhaustion she had been fighting. Her sides rose and fell in deep rhythmic breaths, her face relaxing in a way I hadn't seen before. In sleep, years seemed to fall away from her, revealing the young dog she actually was beneath the hardship and struggle. I stopped reading, but remained sitting beside the kennel, watching over this small family. Moon continued to hold his own in the incubator, his tiny chest rising and falling with increasing strength. Rusty and Boots dreamed puppy dreams, their little paws twitching occasionally, and Luna slept the sleep of one who has finally found sanctuary after a long journey through darkness. Outside, the world continued. Stars wheeled across the Vermont sky. Cars occasionally passed on distant roads. The night moved toward dawn with inevitable patience. But in this quiet room, time seemed suspended. We existed in a bubble of safety and connection, fragile perhaps, but real. I thought about the events that had led me here. A routine property inspection, a pair of watching eyes in the shadows, a series of choices that seemed inevitable only in retrospect. How easily it might have gone differently. How easily I might have walked away, called animal control, left them to whatever fate bureaucracy determined. But I hadn't. And now I sat cross-legged on the floor of a veterinary clinic in the middle of the night, watching over a sleeping dog and her puppies, feeling more purpose in this simple act than I had in years of showing houses and closing deals. Tara checked in again around 2 a.m., her eyebrows raising slightly when she found me still awake. "You should get some sleep," she advised quietly. "They're all stable. I'll wake you if anything changes." I nodded, acknowledging her wisdom. I was exhausted, emotions and adrenaline finally giving way to bone-deep fatigue. I moved back to the cot, stretching out fully clothed on top of the blanket. From this position, I could still see Luna and her puppies in the kennel, and Moon in his incubator, all sleeping peacefully, all safe. "Good night," I whispered to the room at large. "Sleep well." As I drifted towards sleep, my last conscious thought was of Luna's eyes, how they had changed through the day from wary assessment to tentative trust, and I wondered what they would hold tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days to come as this unexpected journey continued. Because one thing had become clear to me, lying there in the dim light of the clinic. This wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning. I woke to the soft sounds of movement and muted conversation. Sunlight filtered through the clinic's small window, creating patterns on the floor. For a moment, I was disoriented. The unfamiliar cot, the medical equipment, the kennel beside me. Then memory rushed back, and I turned quickly to check on Luna and her puppies. They were awake. Luna sat alert in the kennel, watching as Tara, the night attendant, checked Moon's vitals. Rusty and Boots were exploring their enclosure with morning energy, tumbling over each other in play that seemed remarkably normal, given their circumstances. "Morning," Tara said, noticing I was awake. "You'll be happy to know everyone had a good night. Moon's temperature is normal now, and he's taking his formula well." I sat up, running a hand through my hair, aware that I probably looked as rumpled as I felt. "He's eating?" Tara nodded. "We started him on small amounts of puppy formula by syringe every couple of hours. He's keeping it down and showing more energy." She smiled. "He's a fighter, this one." I moved to the incubator, peering in at the tiny puppy. To my amazement, Moon's eyes were open, dark blue like all newborn puppies, but alert, taking in the world around him. When he noticed me, his little tail gave a barely perceptible wag. "Hey there," I whispered, gently stroking his head with one finger. "Look at you, all bright-eyed." Luna whined softly from her kennel, her attention fixed on her smallest puppy. Tara noticed and nodded to me. "We're going to try something this morning, if you'd like to help." "Of course. Moon is stable enough now that we think he can have some supervised time with his mother and siblings. Not full-time yet. He still needs the incubator's controlled environment and the IV fluids, but short periods of family connection would be beneficial for all of them." My heart lifted at the thought. "What do you need me to do?" "Just be present. Luna trusts you. Your presence will help keep her calm during the transition." I nodded, moving to sit beside Luna's kennel. She acknowledged me with a brief press of her nose against my hand through the bars, a gesture that felt surprisingly intimate given her previous wariness. Tara carefully lifted Moon from the incubator, supporting his tiny body with practiced hands. The IV had been temporarily disconnected, though the catheter remained taped to his little leg. She approached the kennel slowly, allowing Luna to see exactly what was happening. "Ready?" she asked me. I opened the kennel door, keeping it just wide enough for Tara to pass Moon through. Luna watched intently, her body tense but not aggressive. As Tara extended her hands offering Moon, Luna stretched forward, sniffing her puppy thoroughly before gently licking his face. "That's it," Tara encouraged. "He's all yours for a little visit." She carefully placed Moon on the blanket inside the kennel. Luna immediately curled around him, continuing to lick and nuzzle him with focused attention. Rusty and Boots approached their smaller brother cautiously, sniffing with obvious curiosity. "This is the first time they've all been together since you brought them in," Tara observed. "It's important for their development. The puppies learn from each other as much as from their mother." I watched as Luna guided Moon with gentle nudges, helping him nestle against her side. The tiny puppy seemed to gain energy from the contact, his movements becoming more purposeful. Rusty and Boots settled nearby, occasionally sniffing or licking their smaller brother in what looked remarkably like affection. "Family reunion," I said softly. Tara smiled. "Exactly. We'll give them about 20 minutes together, then Moon goes back to his incubator. We'll repeat this several times today if all goes well." She left to attend to other patients, leaving me alone with the reunited family. I sat quietly, observing the intricate interactions between mother and puppies. Luna's attention never wavered from Moon, though she periodically checked on Rusty and Boots as well, maintaining her vigilant mothering despite her own exhaustion and injuries. Dr. Lambert arrived around 8, bringing fresh coffee and a bagel for me. "You stayed all night," she observed, handing me the breakfast. "Seemed like the right thing to do," I replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. Luna slept. "I think maybe for the first time in a long while." She nodded, watching the dogs thoughtfully. "Tara told me Moon's doing well with the family visits." "That's excellent progress." She hesitated, then added, "We need to discuss next steps, Jack, for all of them." The seriousness in her tone caught my attention. "Is something wrong?" "Not wrong. Exactly." She sat beside me, keeping her voice low. "They're all responding well to treatment. Better than I expected, honestly. But they can't stay here indefinitely. The clinic isn't set up for long-term rehabilitation, especially for a case like this. Reality began to intrude on the bubble of connection I'd been living in for the past 24 hours. Of course, they couldn't stay here forever. This was a working veterinary clinic, not an animal shelter. What are the options? I asked, already feeling a tightness in my chest at the thought of them leaving. Dr. Lambert sighed. Typically, we'd transfer them to the county animal shelter once they're medically stable. They have more resources for long-term care and adoption placement. The county shelter. I'd driven past it many times, a low institutional building on the outskirts of town. Not a bad place, certainly, but impersonal, understaffed, and with clear protocols that might not accommodate the special needs of this particular family. Would they stay together? I asked. Dr. Lambert's hesitation told me everything. They'd try, but Luna and the puppies would likely be separated once the puppies are weaned. Adult dogs and puppies have different adoption prospects. Different adoption prospects. The phrase sounded clinical, masking the emotional reality it represented. A family torn apart after everything they'd survived together. And Moon, with his medical needs, her expression softened with regret. Special needs puppies are challenging to place. He might require foster care until he's stronger. I looked at the kennel, where Luna was still curled protectively around Moon, with Rusty and Boots playing nearby. This little family that had survived abandonment, starvation, and exposure. This mother who had sacrificed everything for her puppies, now facing separation as their reward for survival. Something shifted in my chest, a decision forming before I even consciously considered it. What if I took them? The words emerged with surprising steadiness. Dr. Lambert's eyebrows rose. All of them. Jack, that's a huge commitment. 4 dogs, one with ongoing medical needs. Are you prepared for that? Was I? My life until yesterday had been orderly, predictable, a comfortable apartment that didn't allow pets, a career that demanded long hours, weekends spent on property viewings or paperwork, no significant relationships, no real attachments. I'd cultivated that existence deliberately after everything that had happened. I'd need to make some changes, I acknowledged. Find a pet-friendly place. Learn about dog care. But I glanced again at Luna, who seemed to be listening to our conversation, her amber eyes fixed on my face. I made her a promise that I'd help them. Dr. Lambert studied me thoughtfully. This isn't just about medical care. You know, these dogs have been traumatized. Luna especially will need time, patience, training. The puppies will grow quickly, need socialization, boundaries. It's a years-long commitment. I understand that. Do you? Because I've seen this before. Well-intentioned rescues that fall apart when reality sets in. That would be devastating for these dogs, especially after what they've already been through. Her words stung, but I recognized the truth in them. This couldn't be an impulsive decision based on emotional connection alone. It needed to be practical, sustainable. What if? I began slowly, thinking it through. What if we start with fostering, while I make the necessary arrangements, find a new place to live, get supplies, learn what I need to know? That would give everyone time to adjust, to see if it's a good fit. Dr. Lambert's expression softened. That's a more reasonable approach. We sometimes work with independent fosters for special cases. She paused. You really are serious about this? It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes, I am. She nodded slowly. All right, let's talk through what fostering would entail and what you'd need to do to prepare for potentially adopting them permanently. For the next hour, Dr. Lambert outlined a comprehensive plan. Luna and the puppies would stay at the clinic for at least another week. Luna needed time for her infection to clear and her strength to return, and Moon required continued medical supervision. This would give me time to find pet-friendly housing, acquire necessary supplies, and begin learning about dog care and training. We discussed the specific needs each dog would have: Luna's recovery from malnutrition and possible past abuse, the puppy's developmental milestones, Moon's ongoing medical care. Dr. Lambert gave me resources, books, websites, local trainers who specialized in rescue dogs. May contributed lists of supplies I would need, from food to bedding to baby gates. This won't be easy, Dr. Lambert cautioned, especially in the beginning. I know, I replied, but neither was surviving under that porch. She smiled at that. It's true enough. Well, if you're serious about this, I am. Then I think fostering is a good first step. We'll make it official. You'll be their foster parent while we continue medical care, and you make the necessary arrangements. Then we can reassess in a few weeks. It felt right. A commitment with room for adjustment, with the dog's well-being as the priority. As if sensing the decision that had been made, Luna's gaze met mine through the kennel bars. There was still weariness there, still the caution of a dog who had learned hard lessons about human reliability. But there was something else too, a connection, a recognition. We had both taken a chance on trust, and so far neither of us had been disappointed. Tara returned to take Moon back to his incubator, explaining that he needed his IV fluids and rest. Luna watched anxiously as her smallest puppy was removed, but didn't protest, another sign of the tentative trust she was developing in the clinic staff. As Moon was settled back in his incubator, my phone buzzed. Reality intruding. My boss, wondering why I hadn't completed the Parker property assessment, why I hadn't come into the office, whether I was sick, the normal world continuing while mine had transformed. I need to make some calls, I told Dr. Lambert. Work, apartment manager, start the ball rolling. She nodded. Go handle what you need to. We'll take good care of them. Come back this afternoon if you can. Consistency is important for building Luna's trust. I approached the kennel one last time before leaving. Luna watched me attentively, her amber eyes serious. I'll be back, I promised her quietly. We're going to figure this out together. She didn't respond, of course. But as I turned to leave, her tail gave a single tentative wag, a gesture so small it might have been missed if I hadn't been watching for it. A tiny acknowledgement. A beginning. I stepped out of the clinic into the bright Vermont morning, the autumn air crisp with possibility. The world looked different somehow, sharper, more vivid, as if I had been sleepwalking through my days, until amber eyes in the darkness had awakened me. I had no idea what challenges the coming weeks would bring, but for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was moving toward something rather than away. And that, I realized as I started my truck, made all the difference. My boss, Richard, stared at me in disbelief when I explained my need for schedule flexibility to foster 4 dogs. After initial skepticism, his expression softened when I described Luna's devotion to her puppies. To my surprise, he offered practical help, information about a pet-friendly cottage on Cedar Lane, and a week of personal time to get settled. The cottage was far from perfect, peeling wallpaper, dated fixtures, sticky windows, but it had potential. Most importantly, it featured a fenced backyard where the dogs could safely play. I called Richard from the driveway and committed to taking it immediately. At the pet supply store, an employee named Quinn guided me through essential purchases, diving into the deep end, they remarked after hearing about my rescue situation. The shopping cart filled quickly with food, bowls, beds, a playpen, and carefully selected toys. By evening, I'd made multiple trips between stores and the cottage, setting up the bare essentials of our new home. As promised, I returned to the veterinary clinic where Luna's demeanor had noticeably shifted. When she saw me, she approached the kennel door and pressed her nose against the mesh, not just tolerating my presence, but seeking connection. Dr. Lambert arrived carrying Moon, wrapped in a blue towel now strong enough for a longer family visit. I placed him gently in the kennel, watching as Luna immediately tended to him while his brothers initiated gentle play. Family bonds remained strong despite their separation. I found a place, I told Dr. Lambert. a cottage with a fenced yard. Her approval was evident as we discussed preparations for bringing them home. Before leaving, I promised Luna, soon we'll all go home together. The word resonated in my mind during the drive back home, something none of us truly had before this moment. The next week passed in a whirlwind of activity, repairing fence gaps, installing baby gates, covering hardwood floors with area rugs, and setting up dedicated areas for feeding and sleeping. Each evening I visited the clinic, learning the dog's individual personalities. Rusty emerged as adventurous, always first to investigate new things. Boots remained cautious but sweet, often seeking comfort against Luna. Moon, despite his size, showed quiet determination, and Luna transformed daily, gaining weight, her coat beginning to shine, her wariness gradually giving way to engagement. By the 6th day, Dr. Lambert declared Moon stable enough to leave the incubator permanently. Though still requiring special care, he could now remain with his family full-time. The reunion was beautiful, Luna immediately making space for him, the brothers gently welcoming their smaller sibling. On the 7th day, Dr. Lambert completed final examinations. "They're ready to go home with you," she announced. The drive to Cedar Lane felt momentous. Inside the cottage, I set the carriers in the living room and opened their doors. "Take your time," I said. Luna emerged first, methodically exploring the perimeter before returning to the puppies. Only when she gave a soft huff did they venture forth, Rusty leading, followed by Boots, with Moon moving more deliberately but with determination. I sat quietly on the floor, watching their exploration. After 20 minutes, Luna approached me, sniffed my hands, then settled beside me, not touching, but close enough to feel her warmth. A conscious choice, the beginning of trust. "Thank you," I whispered, "for giving me a chance." The puppies gradually ventured closer, Rusty flopping against my leg, Boots sniffing my socks, Moon settling just within reach. Outside, birds called from trees as sunlight shifted across the floor. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a house began the transformation into a home. Not every day brought heartwarming breakthroughs. Reality asserted itself, usually at 3 a.m. or during important work calls. During a crucial Zoom presentation, disaster struck. Somehow, Rusty orchestrated a jailbreak from the playpen. All 3 puppies discovered the kitchen garbage, which now lay overturned across the floor. I muted my microphone just as Rusty pranced past the camera with a coffee filter in his mouth. Potty training presented another challenge. Despite taking the puppies outside hourly, mysterious puddles appeared in surprising locations. Moon, despite his size, proved particularly creative in finding inappropriate toilet spots. Luna approached house training with the same determined intelligence she'd shown in survival. Within days, she understood outdoor bathroom expectations. The puppies took considerably longer, with progress measured in fewer accidents rather than none. Nighttime brought different struggles. Luna's protective instincts meant she initially slept by the front door rather than in her comfortable bed. Any unusual sound outside sent her into alert mode, which inevitably woke the puppies, who then required settling all over again. Work adaptation proved challenging. Richard had been supportive, but client obligations still needed meeting. I converted part of the dining room into a home office, where Luna could supervise from her nearby bed while the puppies napped in their playpen. Conference calls were scheduled during puppy nap time when possible, though this strategy wasn't always successful. Through it all, Luna watched me. My reactions, my patience or frustration, my consistency or lack thereof. She was evaluating whether this arrangement was truly permanent or just another temporary reprieve in a life of uncertainty. "We're figuring it out," I assured her one night after a particularly challenging day of accidents, chewed laptop cords, and missed deadlines. Together, her amber eyes held mine, and she rested her head gently on my knee, not completely convinced, perhaps, but willing to keep trying. For now, that was enough. "You need help," May declared when I brought the dogs for their 1-month checkup. Moon still required special monitoring. and I'd arrived at the clinic with dark circles under my eyes and mismatched socks. "I'm managing," I insisted, as Rusty attempted to eat his leash, and Boots tangled himself around my legs. "Managing isn't thriving," Dr. Lambert observed, entering with Moon's charts. "For them or for you?" She was right. Between work demands and puppy care, I was functioning on minimal sleep and maximum coffee. The cottage improvements had stalled, and my own self-care had become non-existent. "I don't need," I began. "A village," Dr. Lambert interrupted. "Every new parent needs a village of support." The next morning, Quinn from the pet supply store arrived with a puppy training book and offers to help dog-proof the cottage more effectively. Later that week, Tara from the clinic's night shift volunteered for puppy sitting during an important client meeting. Most surprisingly, my boss Richard appeared on Saturday with his chocolate lab. "Molly, socialization," he explained gruffly. "Puppies need to meet other dogs, and you need adult conversation that doesn't revolve around potty training." Luna was wary of Molly initially, positioning herself protectively near her puppies. But Molly, with the wisdom of a well-adjusted adult dog, simply lay down at a respectful distance, demonstrating peaceful intentions. By afternoon, the two mothers were sharing the backyard companionably while the puppies explored under their watchful eyes. "You're doing well with them," Richard commented, watching Luna gently correct Rusty's over-enthusiastic play. "They've come a long way in a month." Looking at Luna's shining coat, the puppy's growing confidence, and Moon's remarkable progress, I had to agree. We were forming something special here. Not just recovery from hardship, but the creation of something new and beautiful. That evening, after everyone had left, Luna did something unprecedented. She hopped onto the couch beside me, rested her head on my lap, and sighed contentedly. Not fleeting contact, but deliberate connection. "We've got this," I told her, gently stroking her golden head. For the first time, I completely believed it. Despite his brother's accelerated growth, Moon remained noticeably smaller. At their 2-month checkup, while Rusty and Boots romped boisterously in the exam room, Moon watched from Luna's side, his movements more measured. "His growth curve is improving," Dr. Lambert explained, reviewing his charts, "but the early malnutrition and health challenges have affected his development. He may always be smaller than average." I watched Moon carefully navigate from the exam table to the floor, his movements deliberate but determined. Will it limit him? His quality of life? Dr. Lambert shook her head. Not with proper care. He's compensating brilliantly for his size. Notice how he's developing problem-solving skills while his brothers rely more on strength. She was right. Where Rusty bulldozed through obstacles and Boots followed established paths, Moon observed, calculated, then found creative solutions. When his brothers monopolized a favorite toy, Moon would distract them with playful barks, then claim the prize during their momentary confusion. His smaller stature meant he tired more quickly during play, often retreating to Luna's side for rest. But rather than seeming frustrated by his limitations, he'd watch his brothers intently, studying their movements, as if learning through observation what he couldn't yet physically accomplish. The most remarkable aspect of Moon's development wasn't physical, but emotional. He displayed extraordinary empathy, always the first to offer comfort when Luna seemed anxious, or when I returned home tired. If Boots became overwhelmed during play, Moon would intervene, offering gentle companionship until his brother's confidence returned. "He's special," May remarked during a follow-up visit. Not despite his challenges, but perhaps because of them. One evening, I found Moon struggling to climb onto the couch where his brothers were already settled. After several determined attempts, he sat back, considering the problem. Then, spotting a nearby dog bed, he pushed it against the couch, creating a step that allowed him to join his family. Watching his clever solution, I felt a surge of pride and recognition. Moon had learned early that direct paths weren't always accessible, that adaptation and persistence were sometimes necessary. "You're going to be just fine," I told him, gently stroking the crescent marking on his forehead. His tail wagged in response, Not the exuberant flag of his brothers, but a quiet, confident affirmation. He already knew